immigration is going to be a huge issue. Also on the Senate side, confirmation of federal judges. To the degree there's openings at this point, the outgoing Biden administration confirmed 235, or had confirmed by the Senate, 235 judicial nominees during their single 4-year period. That's one more than the first Trump administration.
Welcome to the Debrief, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about what they're covering and where the story is going next. I'm here today with David Mark. David, you've been covering this transition between the Biden administration and the Trump administration. Trump is coming in with a very aggressive agenda. What is the game plan for Republicans in Congress to get this thing passed?
They are still working that out because on the one hand, the Senate numbers are respectable for Republicans. They'll have 53 to 47 majority. In the House, though, it is razor thin. It will effectively be 220 to 215. It's hard to get smaller than that. The big question is, how do they legislatively push through incoming President Trump's agenda, specifically the tax cut package, extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the 2017 Act, basically Trump's signature domestic achievement back then. They'll have to go through what Washington insiders call the reconciliation process, which can sound like marriage counseling or something like that, but it's really about how to get around the Senate filibuster rule to pass through an extension with only 51 votes, quote unquote, even though that's a majority. The whole reason they have to even extend them is because they had to use these rules last time. There's still a lot of debate between House and Senate leaders on how to do that, and we'll see how it goes.
So, is that their only priority, or are there other agenda items that some people want to, not some people, the Trump administration wants to have the Senate address early on?
It's far from their only priority. Border security is a big part of that. One of the big questions is whether they can fit that into this legislative approach that only needs a bare Senate majority rather than the 60-vote threshold. You can ask different legislative experts on that. You get different answers. There's different pieces of that may or may not, depends whether it affects it's deemed to have affect the budget outlays or not. I won't get into all the weeds on that. But immigration is going to be a huge issue. Also on the Senate side, confirmation of federal judges. To the degree there's openings at this point, the outgoing Biden administration confirmed 235, or had confirmed by the Senate, 235 judicial nominees during their single 4-year period. That's one more than the first Trump administration. There are some interesting cases of federal judges unretiring or having announced that they were going to retire, and then once Trump won in November, they said, maybe not, we'll just stay on their job. That's a whole other discussion, but we'll see how many openings there actually are. But inevitably, some will come up over the next 4 years.
And then, of course, there's the cabinet that needs to be approved as well.
Well, absolutely. There's the ones that have gotten lots of attention, like RFK Jr. at HHS, Tulsi Gabbard at Director of National Intelligence, Pete Hegseth, Defense, some of the others. It'll be interesting to see how much, if any, Democratic support some of the seemingly less controversial ones get, like Senator Marco Rubio of Florida for Secretary of State. Usually senators vote for one of their own, but not always. And there's some other ones like that that may get some middling level of Democratic support. It kind of doesn't really matter in the end, as long as they get it confirmed.
What else are you working on?
Well, one thing that I'm keeping an eye on is the stance of now former Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky. Really interesting case. He's led Republicans for the past 18 years. He's back to being a rank and file senator for the first time in almost 2 decades. In fact, he was in leadership before that. So really going back to the first half of his Senate career.
I believe he's on the Appropriations Committee, right?
Right, and he's actually already made an interesting move. He had the seniority to leapfrog the incoming Senate Appropriations Committee chairwoman, Susan Collins of Maine. He could have done that. He actually chose not to do that. He's going to head instead a subcommittee which oversees spending for the Defense Department. Still very important, but I think it's sort of a sign that he knows his time leading the Senate is up, wants to give others a chance. She also has a re-election bid coming up. So he's an interesting maneuver. Also, how much he goes along with the Trump administration. He probably will on most of the cases, but there might be some other instances on aid to Ukraine and other matters where he plays more of an independent role. So it'll be interesting.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And please read more at thewashingtonexaminer.com.